So we're going to get started today. I wanted to talk about some of my obsessions, okay? That's all. I just needed to confess some things to you in hopes that you won't make fun of me and that you guys will have some obsessions of your own. So I'm gonna start with this confession of football. Who has watched the NFL playoffs yesterday? Right? It's great. Football's great. We all love it. Let me just go ahead and say something to you. I'm obsessed with the Buffalo Bills. It doesn't matter if you boo, if you clap, if you stay where you are. I'm still obsessed with the Buffalo Bills. Every time I watch the game, I'm a grown man. I'm 23, okay? Every time I watch the game, when it's a close game at the end, my hands are doing this. I don't know why. I've been eating pizza all day. I haven't been playing. Like, I'm just sitting here like this. I'm shaking. I'm watching the game. Some of my friends, and Jason Campbell can probably attest to this, anytime like my friends come over, they're like, hey, Mike, what's going on? I'm like, quiet, it's game time. And they're just like, are you okay? Like, what's going, like, I'm so obsessed. I went to a game this past year, and there was this guy in like 10-degree weather with his shirt off, with a Buffalo Bill logo painted on his stomach, and he's obsessed. But I looked at him and I was like, proud of you, love you. Like, he's obsessed with the Bills. But don't look at me like I'm weird, because I'm about to get to you guys in just a second. If you have a cell phone up in this place, can you wave it at me like you just don't care? Come on, wave it in the air, wave it in the air, wave it in the air. If you don't have a cell phone, and if you're very disappointed that I asked the question, can you also wave to me, right? I'm sorry, Maya. Sorry, everyone. Sorry. Okay. So check this out. How many of you know that you and me are obsessed with your cell phone? Okay? I'm going to share a couple of examples. I saw some of these in the crowd. It's definitely one of these, okay? Let me show you this example. So how many of you guys have ever been hanging out in a group of friends, maybe like 5 or 10 people, you guys are all hanging out, and then all of a sudden, every single person is just on their phone. And they're there and they're like tweeting or Facebook posts, like, oh my gosh, come look at this YouTube video. Haha, the screen is so big. No, it's not. Why are you watching it on this? Like, you know what I'm talking about? Everyone is so obsessed with their phones that even when they're hanging out, they're not even spending time with people that are there. I think the funniest one is when all of your friends are hanging out on the couch and you guys are all sitting down, right? And you guys are like sitting pretty close and you're like watching a movie or something, and then all of a sudden a text comes through and everyone has the same vibrate on, so then they're like, and everyone thinks it's their phone, so they all pull it out and they're like, and then everyone's disappointed except one person who's like, yeah, Mom, I'll be home in 15 minutes. Like, you know, like, that's it. We are so obsessed with our phones in this culture that for many of you guys, when you ride to school, probably the majority of the kids on your bus are listening to music on their headphones, whether it's an iPod or it's their iPhone, but they are obsessed with the device that is in their hand. They're so obsessed, in fact, man, can we work on, sorry, I'm yelling, sorry. They're so obsessed with headphones and with a device in their hand, in fact, that there have been fashion created for headphones around your neck to match your shoes. Don't look at me like I'm weird, because that's weird to me. Maybe not. But there are like $200, $300 pair of headphones to accommodate our obsession with our iPod or our phone, right? I believe that for some of us, when we think of the word obsession, we think of something that is bad. We think of something that isn't good. It's something that we shouldn't, we spend too much time on. But what if I were to challenge you today and say this, that I believe that it's possible, and we're going to learn today that it's possible for us to actually have a glorious obsession with the things of God. It's possible for us to have a glorious obsession for Jesus. What if I were to tell you that God has a glorious obsession with you? The Bible says that God knows the amount of hairs on your head. 1, 2, 3. Talk about obsession. He knows the amount of hairs on your head. It says that God's love for you surpasses all the individual pebbles of sand on all of the sea. Like, that's obsession. God has a glorious obsession for you. And so if you guys are taking notes, we're going to be learning about how in the world are we going to be able to return this glorious obsession back to God. So if you guys are taking notes, there are 2 questions that we're going to ask and we're going to be able to have answered this morning. And the questions are this. It says, what drives you? I would write that down. What drives you? What wakes you up in the morning? What is the very thing that wakes you up? Is it just because you have school? Is it just because there's certain obligations that you have to attend to? Or is there something more that drives you? What wakes you up in the morning? I want you guys to go ahead and write that down. So we're gonna be reading in this story in 2 Corinthians 9. If you guys have your Bibles, I'd turn there, and I just want to share quickly about this guy named Paul who wrote these letters. Now, Paul was this guy who went from church to church to church, from town to town to town, and he absolutely loved Jesus with everything inside of him. And so he would go to these new churches, and he would teach them how to teach and how to pray and how to do all these incredible things. And people would begin to emulate that and to begin to do all that stuff at the churches, right? And there was this one church that like had it all together. They were like the sample church, and this place was called Corinth. Can you say Corinth? Now, how many of you guys know that kid in your class, right? When your teacher's about to show like an assignment or something, she always calls up this one kid and says, so if you look at Brian's paragraph, it's so perfect and it has you know what I'm like, there's always that sample that you have to look at and you're like, okay, we get it, Brian's smarter than us, like chill, you know, but there's always that sample, right? And so here Paul is always pointing back to this church in Corinth as this sample of a beautiful church, a place to follow. And so as Paul is writing to this church, he's letting them know that he's coming with another church to come and learn from them. And so watch what Paul says in this verse. We're going to start in verse 2, 2 Corinthians 9, verse 2. And it says this in verse 2. It says, for I know your eagerness to help, and I've been boasting about it to the Macedonians, telling them that since last year you in Chiae were ready to give, and your enthusiasm has stirred. Can you say stirred? Your enthusiasm has stirred most of them to action. Next verse. But I am sending the brothers in order that our boasting about you in this matter should not prove hollow, but that you may be ready as I said you would be. So what Paul is saying is, look, I'm about to come with this other church. You better be just like I said that you were. You better you better be showered. You better be ready. You better have some breath mints in. Like, you better be ready and all that stuff, because I'm bringing my people for you. So I started to think about myself in high school, that I had this group of friends. Now, how many of you guys have that like tight group of bros, like, or sissies? Yeah, sorry. Okay, anyway. So you guys have that tight group where you know that these people are so close to you. When I was in high school, I had this incredibly tight, close group of friends. We met at the church, and we all committed our life to Jesus together. But there was a problem. You see, when we left the church, the only thing that we did outside of church was what everybody else did who didn't even know Jesus. All we did was play video games or play basketball or just hang out, which is not bad. But we didn't actually use the power that Jesus had given us. And if I could look back on my life, the one thing I would say was, I wish that we would have used the power that God had given us, that just like we said the word stirred, that me and my friends would have stirred up the generation that was in front of us. And I believe that was exactly what Paul was trying to get these people to do. Paul later goes on to say in 1 Corinthians 16, verse 15, in the original language, this is what Paul says he and his fellow people believed in the ministry. It says at the end, they have addicted themselves to the ministry of the saints. Now, when you see the word addicted, what do you think of? Someone tell me. Facebook, what?
Like you
Can't stop doing it, but like what do you think of when I say addicted to what? Food. Give me the real stuff. Drugs. Do something else. Come on. Video games, relationships. Alcohol. Can we? Internet. Okay, texting. All right, cool. So look. When we think addicted, we always think of it as a bad thing. We think addicted to drugs, addicted to sex, addicted to alcohol, addicted to all these things. We think of this negative thing, but Paul is saying he's addicted to ministry. He's addicted to bringing forward the gospel of Jesus. He's addicted that every single person that he sees, that he walks up to, he needs to tell him about the good news of Jesus because he may never see him again. He is addicted to bringing forward the love and the peace and the joy of Jesus. Let me ask you, what is your obsession. For Paul, his glorious obsession was bringing ministry of Jesus forward. But what is our obsession? If you guys are taking notes, we've got 2 points as to how to find our glorious obsession. Point number 1 is we need an obsession, not an obligation. Can you say that out? Come on, say it one more time. Obsession, not obligation. We need to have an obsession and not an obligation. An obligation is this. You wake up every morning at like 6 something, you hop on a bus, you go to school because you are obligated to go to school. Now, if some of you wake up because you are obsessed with school, then you're weird in a very beautiful way, and I love you, but that's crazy. So you are obligated to go to school. When my mom used to tell me that I needed to clean my room, I was obligated to clean my room, so I would typically take everything that was in my room and shove it in my closet until it barely fit, and then I'd be like, done. Because I had no desire to clean my room, but I did the bare minimum because I was just obligated to do so. Now, the problem with us is many of us, we face this challenge between obligation and obsession, but I believe that God is trying to bring us into a glorious obsession. How many of you guys know who Martin Luther King is in this place? I know all of you must, right? Let me tell you something about him. Martin Luther King, he was one of the leaders of the civil rights movement, as you guys know. And Martin Luther King believed that not only black people, but that all races, all ethnicities, all people should be brought with equality in America and all throughout the world. He believed so strongly about it. Now, what is the one speech from Martin Luther King that you remember the most? Come on, say it again. You remember the speech that says, I have a dream. So check this out. Martin Luther King could have woken up one day when it was speech day, and he could have said, today is just another day of obligation. Today I'm scheduled to speak again, and I'm going to go in Washington, D.C., and I'm just going to speak what's on my notes, and then I'm going to just kind of do, whatever the bare minimum is, whatever I'm obligated to do. But how many of you know that when Martin Luther King spoke the I Have a Dream speech, he didn't actually start the only portion we remember, he didn't start the I Have a Dream portion until his notes ended. That right when his stuff was done, his message was done, he moved the podium aside and then began to speak his dream. Because what happened was he had a glorious obsession that went past an obligation, but it pushed forward to a glorious obsession with bringing Jesus to the people that were in front of him. Because you see, if all he was looking for was an obligation, then we would never have had the dream. If all he was looking for was the obligation, then he would never have stood up for something greater because he actually had purpose and was pushing for it in his life. How many of you know that 30% of the audience for Martin Luther King were actually white people? 30%. That he wasn't just impacting people of his own race and his own ethnicity, but he was impacting people with a glorious obsession for something more. I believe that for many of you, or some of you in this room, you guys walk into this place and oftentimes church is caught between that balance of obligation and obsession. Sometimes when your mom walks in on a Sunday morning in your bedroom and she says it's time to get up for church, in that moment it becomes an obligation, but it's not a glorious obsession. I think in the moments when, for some of you, when you come in this room and you see other people raising their hands, some of you are raising your hands in full abandonment to Jesus and you're praising him with all that you have, and some of you are looking at your friends and raising your hands because you think that you're obligated to do so. And for some of you, when you begin to do these things out of obligation, you're never going to get the power, you're never going to get the glorious obsession that God has for you because you're only doing the bare minimum. But what God is looking for is he's looking for your hearts. He's not looking for the things that you do. God is looking for your glorious obsession in your heart. The second point, in order for us to have a glorious obsession, is we need to rise above the majority. Can you say rise above the majority? Now, you guys know what the majority looks like, right? You guys go to school, you guys walk throughout your schools, and the majority looks like this. They talk a certain way, they're in certain cliques at school, they sit at certain lunch tables. The majority is people that are always seeking after popularity, always seeking after the next best thing. The majority are people that are always looking out for what's best for them. That is what the majority is. But you see, as we look at the example of Jesus in his life, the only way that Jesus was able to rise above the majority was when he looked nothing like the majority. I would write that down. The only time that Jesus was able to rise above the majority was when he looked nothing like them. But you see, Jesus' disciples, they weren't like making Facebook events and saying, hey, Jesus is going to be coming to a town near you. And Jesus wasn't making YouTube videos where he was like kicking through windows and like, I'm coming. Like, no, like there was nothing. Jesus was walking through with his disciples, with these people. And the only reason that he rose above the majority was because he took this thing from just an obligation and became an obsession with you. There's a scripture that reminisces Jesus' last moments on earth. And in John 12, verse 27, this is what Jesus is praying the day that he's about to die for you and I. And he says, now my heart is troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour? No. But it was for this very reason that I came to this hour. As Jesus is facing death, as Jesus is looking in the face of death, as he is preparing to die for you and me, he could have taken the easy way of obligation and said, we just need to sacrifice something, so let me sacrifice it. But he took obsession and he said, I came for this reason. Now for many of you, I think you guys wake up in the morning and you guys say, today I'm going to live my life for Jesus. For many of you, you wake up and you say, even though it's a tough day, today, Jesus, I'm living my life for you. What if I were to tell you that every single day Jesus woke up, he said, today I'm living my life for you? What if I were to tell you that when Jesus walked this earth, every day he woke up, he said, today I'm living my life for Ryan. Today I'm living my life for Chelsea. Today I'm living my life for Ben. Today I'm living my life for you. What if I were to tell you that when he woke up on the final day before he died for us, he woke up and instead of saying, today I'm going to live for, he said, today I'm going to die for Connor, and I'm going to die for Joey. Jesus had a glorious obsession with you. I believe that here's the point in the message where we struggle to figure out how. For many of you, you say, okay, well, I've been coming to church for a while, and I have been raising my hands, and I have been participating in worship and coming every week, but how do I have this glorious obsession? And I believe for you guys in this room, you need to know that it's not about the things that you do, it's about your heart that you can have with Jesus, that we need to realize that it's about his sacrifice that makes us whole with him. As we close, I want to ask a question. Who of you guys have been to the prayer room? Any of you have you guys journeyed out to the Fishbowl? There's an incredible, some of you, there's an incredible prayer room that's out there, but can I just share what I was praying about the other day? Is that cool? Is that cool? Sweet. So I was in the prayer room, and there were some people there, and the prayer room is very quiet for you guys who haven't been. The music is pretty quiet. A lot of people are reflecting, and they're reading, and some of them are praying and things like that. But as I was praying, I began to picture this room. I began to picture, there's over 100 of us in this room right now. I began to picture, what would it look like if there were students praying while these other people were trying to read? I know that sounds kind of mean. But I was thinking, what would it look like if there were like 20 students on that fused stage over there, praying, believing things for their schools, believing things for their life? What would that look like? I began to think, and I was thinking, man, like, if there were students, if there were like 10 middle schoolers praying in that room, it would change the posture of everybody in that room. I'm not talking like sitting up straight. I'm talking, it would change. They would be like, something is happening here. Not only would you change the posture of the people in the room, but you would begin to change the posture of the people at your schools. That prayer is a start of a glorious obsession. And in order to continue the glorious obsession, we need to continue to pray and to conversate with God. So this is what I'm going to do. At 6 o'clock p.m., every single day for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be at the prayer room over in the Fishbowl at 6 p.m. every day. I'm not asking you guys to come every day, but what I'm asking is maybe for some of you, you can come 2 nights a week. Maybe for some of you, you can come 1 night a week. Maybe for some of you, you really got to beg your mom to even come for 10 minutes. But I ask you, whatever it is that you can do, I ask you to do it. Because I'm telling you the truth with everything inside of me today, that what I'm looking at right now, I've never seen before. What I'm speaking to you about, I've never felt before. But God is doing something that I know all of us need to be a part of.